It connects you to the world and the people you love. You can chat with your family or share a meal with friends and watch cute little cats do unbelievable things.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box. But there are times when social media can get in the way of the real world. Remember that? It's the thing that happens when you run out of battery. That's why we've developed the Social Media Guard. It takes the social out of media and puts it back into your life. Let's see how it works. The Social Media Guard. Get yours now.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask for your undivided attention for our next panelist. Fergus Hay, the worldwide managing partner of Ogilvy and Mather, will have a conversation with Cara O'Connor about social media and Coca-Cola, one of the great innovators in social media. They're inventing lots of new ways to protect us from social media and use it. And yes, you can trust me to come up with your strategy for social media. Thank you very much. Fergus Hay.
Hello. So I just thought Afghan was fantastic, by the way. Can we give a round of applause for him? I thought he was really brilliant. We spent some time with him in the green room, which makes me sound like I'm on a Saturday Night Live chat show. And great kid and cool energy. I liked him a lot. So we're going to talk with someone who has also got a great energy. She is a tremendous force of change at Coca-Cola. She started her life in the creative advertising industry in Australia. She then spent a period of time in Vietnam. I asked her why, and she said because a beer is $1, and that's a good metric of happiness for a country. So she then moved to Indonesia with Coca-Cola, and she has done an incredible change agenda within Indonesia for Coca-Cola Company to try and get to great content that people love, produced in a very modern way to try and keep up with the consumers at the pace that they're changing. So Cara is going to come and explain that to us. She's got a lot to teach us all. We all need to change, and she's done it. And this is a time when we can speak about not just the theory, but the actual action of creating content in modern day world. So please, can I have a major round of applause for Cara Mayega. With our absolutely regular Coca-Cola, just because that's what we do in every single interview that we have. Thank you. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you.
So, when you first arrived in Indonesia, you saw a landscape of opportunity, but there must have also been some elements that you identified that were preventing you getting into the really innovative, creative content that you were excited about doing. Can you just talk to us a bit about what those were?
Sure. So the key problem that we had was we were developing social media content the same way that we develop traditional content. Yeah? So TVCs, print, billboards, we were doing the same process. We were writing briefs, we were talking to account execs, account managers at our agencies. They were sitting in traffic, they were going back to the agency, they were rewriting the briefs, eventually briefing creatives. And it was taking weeks, if not months, to get social media content. We were working in a very traditional manner, and in the meantime, consumers were Instagramming, producing videos on Vine, getting out there and producing content every day. So we knew there was a problem.
And it wasn't like you weren't recognizing that you wanted to create topical content as quickly as possible. You had all the willing to do it, but there were just some fundamental institutional barriers to you being able to produce it.
Yeah, exactly. We were looking at brands like Oreo and saying, how are they doing that? How are they getting approval to get images and write copy and put it online there and then when something happens? And we were still going through a legal process on our side that needed approval for 1 week or 2 weeks or something like that. So we knew that there were problems on both sides, not only on the way we were working with agencies, but also on our own client side and how quickly we could turn around approval on content.
It sounds like that both agency and the client, and a major brand like Coca-Cola, which is the forefront of marketing innovation, effectively we were using old traditional methods and processes to try and apply it to an incredibly modern and forward-thinking content landscape.
Yeah, exactly. So we knew that Coca-Cola works on a liquid and linked philosophy. So we knew we wanted to have content that was liquid, that was spreading, that was creating value. But the actual process of making that in a market like Indonesia just wasn't there. So we didn't have those basic routines. We didn't know how to do it. We knew how to create great content like what you just saw. Yeah, so that takes weeks or months, and once it gets out there, it gets spread and it's fantastic. But that more topical real-time marketing, we didn't have that in place.
So can you give us some examples of exactly the kind of barriers you had to overcome? I know in the past you've talked about some legal delays that you would be facing, also some pricing approaches from the agency to production. Talk to us a little bit about some of those examples.
So I would say there was probably 3 key things. One was the way we were working with our agencies. So we were formally briefing them for content that was for 2 or 3 months in advance, yeah? And we were getting creative back, concepts back, and we were giving feedback, and they would go back to the agency and they would revise them and they would come back and we'd get feedback, and eventually...
And this was for a status update?
Correct.
Right.
And an image.
Right.
If we were lucky.
Right,
yeah?
right.
So, and then once we approved it, which we do eventually, we approve content, then we had to get it through our legal process. So we have a review process that involves all departments where we submit anything consumer-facing. Yeah? So any consumer-facing material has to be reviewed by the heads of department. They give comments, and if that's approved, and that takes a minimum of 4 to 5 days.
Right.
So if you were approving a status on a Thursday or Friday, you had a good week before you could get it out there.
Right.
Yeah. By that time, the whole world has changed online.
So just to draw a parallel, if someone was here at Social Matters and they tweeted, "Oh my God, I love the Coca-Cola social media guard. Isn't that brilliant?" In order for Coca-Cola to respond today, they would have to go to legal approval. They would have to do the agency 8-day creative development process for the first round. 3 weeks later, having gone through all the stakeholders, they would then get some JPEG back and a 5-word status update. And if we're lucky, 2 months after the event, you might be able to put up a Facebook status update about that topical event.
Yeah.
So that feels pretty terminal. That
Yes.
doesn't sound like the kind of approach that a great brand like Coca-Cola will be able to take in the modern world.
That's right. And remember that we couldn't converse with our consumers either 12 months ago. So it's a very different world today. But 12 months ago, if someone had commented on that social media guide and said, "This is fantastic, we should do this in Indonesia, this is a big problem in Indonesia," we couldn't reply back. So that was a problem for us because we were having only one-way conversations with our fans and with our consumers. We were creating great content, we were putting it out there, but we couldn't start that conversation with them.
So knowing you as I do, and your appetite for a challenge and a good old fight, what did you do about it?
Okay, so the first thing we did was stop and realize that we had to change. So it was one thing to go, this isn't working, we can't do what Oreo can do. We can do what Oreo can do, but we had to change the process that we were working with. So we did a few things. The first thing we did was start a social media center, and we piloted that in Indonesia.
Explain to us what that is.
So that is, we now have about 4 or 5 agents sitting in the Coca-Cola office.
Like CIA intelligence agents?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
like a
Coca-Cola
newsroom.
intelligence
Coca-Cola,
agents.
they all wear red shirts, yeah, and drink Coke all day. But they started by listening to what consumers were saying. Then we were able to train them so that they could actually converse back. So now we had a voice. So now when we saw someone talking about, what we were doing, or could we do this in Indonesia, we could actually reply and say, that's a great idea. We'll look to do that.
So you're trying to put in the fundamentals of listening so that you have an idea of what the
That's
trends
right.
are at the moment.
And then start training these agents to speak on behalf of Coca-Cola. And then from there, we looked at, okay, that's great, but then how would we even produce that content? So that didn't solve our problem of the third one, which was about publishing and creating content. So we went back to the problem we had with the way we worked with our agencies. And we said, okay, this whole briefing thing isn't working because we're talking to a middleman that's sitting in a taxi, that's sitting in traffic, that's going back to the agency, that's going to their traffic department, that's talking to the person that we actually wanted to speak to.
Right.
Yeah? We wanted to speak to the community managers and the creatives and the people that were coming up with these ideas so that we could co-create with them. So we started a thing called the Content Editorial Board. We looked at brands like Oreo and brands like Tide that had these newsrooms and were creating content on the spot. And we trialed at least a weekly editorial meeting. So we had all of our agencies. We had our media agency, our creative agency, our digital agency, and then obviously our Coca-Cola marketing team sitting together in a room talking about what was happening, what was trending, what was cool.
So everyone on that board had a role of some sort, right? They're differing roles. Did you have someone who was like a provocateur who was saying, this is the fascinating trends that are happening at the moment for this week in Indonesia that we need to react to?
It was everybody's job to be on board with the trends and topics because everybody was picking up different things. But the agencies did have specific roles. So where the digital agency was all about making it social and kind of being in touch with the conversations, the media agency were all about scaling it up. So it wasn't just about content for social media, it was about, could we put this on a TV show? Could we do a media deal with someone that's already talking about this? And our creative agency were the brand guardians. So Coca-Cola's worth $80 billion, or almost $80 billion. Yeah, it's one of the most valuable brands in the world. We need to be careful with the work that we put out and protect that brand. And we have a huge responsibility to protect that brand.
And what kind of tools did you use to give yourself, I guess it's a freedom within a framework, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. You had a sort of a clear social media guidelines from the center.
Yeah, we have social media guidelines, we have our brand guidelines, we obviously have our brand tonality, we know what we want to talk about. So we have some guidelines, but we need to be able to work within that. Yeah, we can't restrict ourselves too much.
So you have this great board, this content editorial board, which you convene. You don't really know how it's going to work because you're making it up as you go along. What did you learn and how did it evolve as you used it?
So no one had ever done this. Yeah? So when we were looking to change things, we were talking to our head office in Atlanta, and we were talking to other markets, and no one had tried it. So
within
we said, okay,
Coca-Cola.
Within Coca-Cola. So we said, okay, we'll try it and we'll see what happens. About 6 months into it, we realized the success or failure of this board is all about the people sitting at the table. We needed the right people. So you needed someone that was passionate about Coke to take care of the brand guidelines. Yeah, they needed to understand whether the dynamic ribbon could be used, or when we use the Brazil FIFA World Cup, how we could use it, how it works, so that they could guide that content. And then you needed the right people to be able to scale it up and things like that. So the biggest lesson was we didn't always have the right people on the table.
And I suppose you needed an attitude as well. You needed collaboration across multiple parties who weren't being territorial and trying to bury themselves into one corner.
So the other thing was we realized that about 1 or 2 people really stood out. So those creatives, the people that were actually creating with us, yeah, that would have an idea on a Friday, go and create it on their own on the weekend, and let us publish it on the Monday. They were the people that we needed. We didn't need 10 people sitting around a boardroom table every Monday. We needed 1 or 2 people that could work with us to co-create great content.
Great. So give us a couple of examples of what works. Like, what did you do that you're proud of?
So one, it's a shame that we can't show them up here because they make a bit more sense when you can see them. But so one great example is Papercraft. I don't know if everyone knows what Papercraft is, but it's little characters and models made out of paper. And it was huge in Indonesia. Yeah, everyone was going on about Papercraft. That was what all the conversation was about. So that was picked up as a trend or topic, and we talked about it in our editorial board meeting. And at the same time, we were activating badminton as a major asset. So we had access to national team players, and we were trying to make badminton a bit sexier than it is and a bit cooler, and tap into Indonesians' passion for badminton. So we had to meld papercraft as a trend.
So, and describe exactly what Papercraft is for anyone who doesn't
You're testing me now.
Yeah,
because
I know.
I don't know how
Act
to
it
make
out.
papercraft. So paper made into little models, yeah?
Right.
So made into little anime characters.
So it's like a flat piece of paper that's
Exactly.
beautifully
That you
designed. You have
fold.
to cut around it, and you make it into like an origami style character.
Exactly. So, so we had to meld those two. So it's great to have a trend and a topic, but we also have strategic pillars that we need to activate. So the idea was to create little badminton anime characters of our national team players that we then publish the papercraft on our Facebook. People can get it as a PDF, they cut it out, they make little characters. So we made one, and it went crazy. Yeah, everyone was commenting on it, saying this is so cool, this is, Coca are doing exactly what I love. And then we asked them, so who do you want us to make next? And this is where the conversation starts. Yeah, so rather than us talking to ourselves and putting out their papercraft Coke bottles, we were like, here's a badminton player, who's next? And they would tell us, can you make a papercraft of this person? And we'd go and make an anime character and we'd put it out. The secret to this was that we found some creative talent who could actually make the papercraft.
Right.
So we weren't briefing an agency to make a papercraft of a badminton player. We had someone that went, this is really cool and I know how to do it. Bam, 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 jump on a Mac.
How did you find
on
that
the
person?
Monday. Luck.
Luck,
So
okay.
no, we have great agency partners, and we happen to have a creative talent within those partners that showed us that this can work and we can do it differently. And not every creative needs to wait for a brief.
So what you're not doing is developing a lengthy briefing process with a core insight that you've researched with consumers, you've validated in the market to create a piece of paper.
Exactly.
You're actually doing it on the spot with someone talented because intuitively you knew that it was right. And your consumers online were reacting on your social media touch points to tell you that they wanted to hear it.
That's right. Now the other thing that we changed, that had to change, was this didn't have to go through the legal process.
Right.
So we did a lot of work with our legal department, who have a very important job. Yeah, their job is risk mitigation, and it's protecting that $80 billion brand. Yeah. So we needed to talk to them and say, what is the risk? What is the risk of putting out a little paper character online? Yeah. We've got guidelines. We've got brand guidelines. We've got social media guidelines.
So you've done a lot of preparation up front.
Yes.
For what's in order to be instantaneous.
That's right.
Right.
So we said, as long as we play by these rules, and as long as we train the people that are creating this to play by the rules, can we take the risk and put it out there? And we got to a point where our legal counsel was like, let's try it. Let's try that you put things out there, and I'm going to watch you like a hawk, and if you break one rule, I'm going to get you to pull it down. So we tried it, and so far, we haven't broken any rules because we've trained this creative talent, we've trained our social media people, we've trained our marketing team, so they know that rule book back to front.
So it sounds like, just listening to you, the fundamentals that you did is you collectively agreed to change the process. You convened your top talent into an editorial board with everyone having a specific role so that you could move fast. You used your listening center in order to find current trends and what people are talking about your brand. And then creatively, you removed the very long linear process to move fast overnight during the day to create relevant content that people love and react to.
Yeah, that's right.
And what results do you have? I mean, is there anything you can share with us?
Well, we've actually moved even further than that now. So that was, at the end of last year, we knew that was working. What we then did was that great talent, that great creative talent, we brought them in-house.
Right.
Yeah? So we actually have, within our social media team now, we have the people listening and conversing, and then we also have the content creators. So they sit there talking to the people that are looking at trends and looking at what is happening online, and creating content instantaneously. So they have access to all our images, all our guidelines, things that are happening from all over the world, and they can create content and we can publish it within hours.
Right.
We're not yet at Oreo point, where we can see that the lights go out and we can quickly put out content, but we're pretty damn close.
Right. So I love what you've done because it's brave, it's bold, you've blown it up in order to change the processes. And honestly, as an agency leader, I feel that we need to be making as aggressive moves as you are. Coke has always been a wonderful brand because it's changed the agencies frequently, and having worked with you in the past. My question for you is, what's next? What's next on your horizon?
I think for us, we have two prongs that we need to look at. The first one is linking this back to our actual business. So it's great, we're building brand love, we're creating great content, we're topical, we're now very relevant to consumers. But how is that driving sales of this?
Right.
Yeah. So we're now starting to dabble in relationships like partnerships with BBM channel and with mini marts. Yeah. So we're linking up and creating partnerships where we create content that drives promotions. Yeah. So, and that actually drives sales. So you get a discount of a mini mart, it's real time, you get a code, you can purchase Coke. There was no way we could have done that 12 months ago.
So if I'm playing that back to you, it sounds like you were given a brief to experiment on your processes to change, and you've done that really effectively. But the next step is now to tie that back to the commercial performance of the business. And then we can build business cases for why real-time content can drive business performance.
Yeah, that's right. We have a responsibility to the business to continue to sell product, but we also want to continue to evolve these relationships. One of the biggest challenges we have being a global brand is we can't access great content instantaneously from around the world.
Right.
So if Dubai published this, we would wait for them to publish it on YouTube.
You mean
and
the social media guard?
The social media guard. Get an alert from the company, and then we would have to contact the Dubai team and see if we had the rights to be able to utilize that. So something that the company is doing and that we're incredibly excited about is creating a content hub, where if we create something in Indonesia, the South Africa team can pick it up and publish it immediately.
Right.
Yeah. So once that's up, then that content generation will evolve dramatically.
Just a final question for you is, if you're looking at the team of the group of people here, all of whom have a responsibility to help drive content that people love and respond to, what is your clarion call? What is the one thing you would say to people to think about as they try to change their own approaches to doing this?
I think it would be about co-creating with your clients. Yeah. So I think the fundamental change that we made in the last 12 months is that we no longer brief agencies to create content on our behalf. We're co-creating it together. So if there was one thing that the agencies would change, it's changing their process so that the client is involved in that creation process. Getting the right people from the agency and the right people from the client to make great content.
You know, it's so interesting because creativity for so long has been seen as a specialism for the gifted. And actually, I think more and more now, creativity is a behavior and it's an attitude. And what you've done with your innovation in Indonesia to change the working processes and what you're expecting of the creative talent around you to become collaborative so that you can be as creative as they can, I think that is an attitude and a behavior that we all need to adopt in order to further our marketing work and be relevant to our consumers, because actually the most creative people I'm seeing in the world are the consumers at the moment and not the brands and the agencies.
Yeah, that's right. And we still need our agencies because we're not creative. We're clients for a reason. So our agencies add a lot of value to our business, but embracing consumer-generated content is something that we're looking at as well. So I think the challenge for brands like Coca-Cola is rather than just letting consumers go off and generate their own Coca-Cola content, and there's about 10 times more Coca-Cola content online generated by consumers than there are by Coca-Cola. It's about how do we work with consumers to co-create that content. Yeah? So giving consumers the tools and giving them everything that they need access to and then co-creating it with them.
Great. Cara, you've told us a lot today. Thank you for your infectious bravery and courage, and I implore everyone, including ourselves, to take the same attitudes. Ladies and gentlemen, Cara.
Thank you.